Lieutenant Governor, this is our 8th grade class, and they have been learning for many years about civics and the civics program, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and our government. So they are very eager to learn more about you and your role.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so pleased to be with you all this morning. So I'm fortunate enough to get to work alongside the governor every day. Her name is Maura Healey. She was the Attorney General before she was governor. And I help out with state policy. If you think about the work that we're doing at the state level to try and support cities, to try and build a strong economy, to stand up for rights here in Massachusetts, that's happening at the state level. If you think about who's the president of the United States, sort of like the president of the state is the governor, and I get to work alongside her every day. Together, we're the first all-female team. They've never had one woman elected governor, let alone two in the corner office helping lead the state. Thank you from the ladies in the back. And before I did this job, I did what Mayor DePena does, but in a city just down the street, in Salem. Anybody been to Salem, Massachusetts? Kind of at Halloween, a lot of people go there in October. I was fortunate to be the mayor in Salem for 17 years, and you really get to understand how local government works when you're mayor, and also how it doesn't work sometimes. It's very challenging, but very rewarding. And so I'm really grateful to be here to talk with you a little bit about civics, what that means. I want to thank Ms. Ryan for inviting me. That's one of the reasons I'm here. All of your educators and staff for everything they do. Some of the hardest jobs in the world are making sure light bulbs go overhead every day. Your principal, who I think is also a Salem State Viking, like me, Salem State Viking alum, way to go. And for the work they do every single day to try and make sure what we're thinking about we need to do and what we think you all need to learn and know about kind of happens. And it's hard work. And so I wanted to share with you a little bit real life, things that you might be reading about in class or learning about in class when it comes to government and civics and history. And we're doing it in a place that is pretty historic when you think about what happened out of Massachusetts. And this year in particular, we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of American democracy and the American Revolution. Just last Saturday, I was at Lexington Green. That's famous for where the shot was heard around the world, where before this country was formed, people came together to decide what kind of government are we going to have and are we willing to fight for it. It was a big deal. We went from being subjects of a monarchy to then deciding, oh, we're going to form our own thing, have some self-governance, some democracy, and today we're still fighting for that battle in many, many ways. But I'm a person who has really benefited from the idea of what civics means. I grew up as a Navy brat. My dad was in the Navy, in the military, which meant we moved around every 3 to 5 years. He grew up in Lynn, Massachusetts, which is just down the street. My mom is from the Caribbean. She didn't grow up in this country. She was born in Grenada, a tiny island, and grew up in Trinidad. It's in the West Indies, part of the outer Caribbean, almost close to South America. And they got married, and I'm one of 4 girls. And we moved around a lot. I was born in Hawaii, and then we lived in California, and then we lived in Rhode Island, and we lived in Maryland, and we lived in lots of places. So I know what it means to be the new kid in school. Just about every 3 to 5 years, we were in a new school, breaking in what we wanted to do. My parents weren't really politically active or anything like that. I think they were good in terms of their responsibility to vote, but they weren't super active in campaigns or understanding maybe even who their congressperson was or how government worked. I had the chance to go to college, and when you have a chance to go to college, you sort of pick where you want to go, where you can get into, what's going to be a good fit for you. And I went to Salem State University, same school that your principal did, just down the street. I played basketball in college. I'm still wearing my Converse kicks, as you can see, although we never played in this. Nobody played in these, by the way. And I really got to know my community. When you think about it, if you're a person who has to move every 3 to 5 years, when you finally get to pick the place you can live, you want it to be someplace that you can relate to, that you feel comfortable. And for me, that was Salem. 400 years this city has been formed. It welcomed immigrants from different countries speaking different languages. It had all this history. I mean, that's where the witch trials were. They weren't so great to women in 1692, but they came past that. There was something called the Great Age of Sail, where 16-year-old sea captains sailed around the globe, all the way to the far east, to Sumatra and countries, and then came back again to bring back impressive goods, spices and coffees and teas, things that brought great wealth to the city. And so I came there, and it was this place. The first millionaire in America was from Salem, Massachusetts. It had all this history built into it, and different cultures, and different people gathering for many, many years. And I felt right at home because I grew up in that bicultural community. My dad grew up in Lynn, my mom was from the Caribbean, she spoke with an accent, we ate different food, we celebrated different holidays. I didn't even know that you could eat mashed potatoes on a day other than Thanksgiving, because we always had rice and chicken. That's just what we had in our house. So how do I get involved in government? What does that mean to me? Parents who aren't super politically active, moved around a lot, didn't really have roots in one place. And when you learn about civics and history and government, you sometimes think it's words on a paper, but it's actually about you and what you can do. Civics for me was about what I could do. I came to Salem and I started caring about the community I lived in. I thought the place needed some work, could do a few more things. I worked in City Hall and I realized, wow, I actually can make a difference here. I can serve on a board or commission. I was a planning board member. I can work in the planning department. Every community now has a planning department, including Lawrence. We were working on a skateboard park at the time. I thought that was great. We needed a park for kids who wanted to skateboard because they were skateboarding on the streets and the roads and places that weren't safe. I got to work on that as a college student. We had this downtown area where we used to have an international festival every year. But it didn't really look that great. It was tired and old. And so I could help make sure that got improved, working with our local DPW and with people raising money to improve that green space that would actually look like a place you'd want to hang out in. That's me, just one person. And I liked it so much that I decided maybe I can run for mayor. Maybe I can do something even more important than just helping out and volunteering. And thankfully, enough people agreed, because you got to get people to vote for you. You got to go knock on doors and talk to people. And what I found was somebody who had really never been elected statewide or citywide, didn't really have a lot of money in the bank to campaign, frankly just had a fire in my belly because I cared about the place that I loved and lived and wanted to do something about it, much like Mayor DePena does, Rep. Francisco does. Like, how can I take that to the next level? Well, what you learn about in civics is in this country we have representative democracy. If you care about something and you go and knock on doors and talk to enough people and tell them what your ideas are, they might actually agree to some of them. And then you get elected and you now represent them. That means you're not playing like American Idol. You're not just like listening to the way the wind blows. How many people show up in the room? I guess that's a lot of people. I've got to do what they do. No, you get to do your research and understand what's that fire in your belly. What do you really care about? What's going to be in the best interest of your community? And that's how you vote. That's how you make investments. In my case, that's how I led the city for 17 years. But there's one overarching theme when I think about Salem that still holds true today. And I wanted to make sure it was part of everything we did, was that it really mattered that we had this inclusive, welcoming community, the way that I felt when I went there. Salem wasn't just this place on a map. It was a collection of people living in different neighborhoods, celebrating different traditions, and all came together to make the city really great. So when we are in governing and we have an opportunity to influence a place, any chance that we can make sure people realize, like, hey, this place is for all of us. This is a place that's actually made better by all of us. And when you're in government and you have a chance to put those values in place with action, you end up having a city or a state or a country that's really livable, that feels like it's yours because you are a part of it and because you help support it and celebrate it. And in its essence, that's what civics is all about. Yes, it's government. Yes, it's history. Yes, it's checks and balances and the Constitution and the important things you're going to learn and will continue to learn about what makes the fabric of government work. But at its heart and soul, it's people. People who get up every single day, who care about where they live, are willing to make decisions to support it, and most assuredly, want it to be a place that's welcoming and inclusive for all. That's what Massachusetts thinks about. This is the place that John Adams helped write the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. This is the place that threw the tea in the harbor. We were those troublemakers nearly 250 years ago that said, no, we don't want to be governed by a king many, many miles away. This is the place that then risked life and limb. These were everyday, ordinary people. They were farmers and merchants and laborers and blacksmiths who decided to band together to form a new government that would be of the people, by the people, for the people. So what's our responsibility as the people 250 years later? To find a way to be part of that story. If we don't like something, we actually have a voice. We can make it better. You all, as 8th graders, have more power than you know, showing up at a school committee to fight for something you believe in. Acknowledging something that's going really well by telling people about it. That's really good too. Standing up for values that you believe in ways that maybe it's volunteering to help clean up a park. Maybe it's finding ways to get involved in an effort that's something bigger than yourself with a collection of people. That's what civics is about. So as you're reading about these things in class and talking about them, probably even watching some videos about what the American Revolution was and how our government works, I want you to keep one thing in mind. You are why it works. I have no business being lieutenant governor. I have no business being mayor. I didn't come from a wealthy family. I didn't look like everybody else, and the things that happened in my house weren't celebrated just the way they were in lots of places. I was used to being that new kid every single 3 to 5 years. I took those values of loving where I lived, wanting to make a difference, and give back. That's why I'm here. That's what civics is about. It's not just something you read about. It's really the power that you have to act. So I hope as you're reading those stories, you can see yourself in those roles. What can you do to make your community better? What can you do to make your block better? What can you do to make your school better? That's civics in action. Nobody does any of the work that we do alone. We like to say we're a team in Massachusetts. I'm wearing my Team Massachusetts bracelet, which means state government has a role, local government has a role. Rep. Paulino is a member of the legislative branch, so he gets to vote on budgets and pass laws. We get to propose things, but we work together, and that's what makes Massachusetts such a special place too. So I'm going to stop there and would welcome some questions if there are any. I worked in the city of Chelsea that was improving itself, and I felt like Salem could improve itself. So I quit my job, not something I would always recommend, and campaigned full-time, knocking on doors, talking to community members, telling them what my vision was for Salem, and most assuredly listening. Sometimes in this role, politicians tend to talk more than they listen, but you really need to hear what's on people's mind, and is it aligned with others, and how do we tackle a problem that if so many people are mindful of? And so I ran for mayor and I won, and that's how I got here. But it was really just about having a fire in my belly for the community I lived in. Thanks for the question. When I became mayor, my kids were 3, 5, and 9. They were super little. And that is hard because when you are working for the public, you are worked 24/7. Like, you really care about this place. You don't want to let anybody down. You're a people pleaser. How do you make sure you're getting to all the business? And it's really busy. And so for me, it was trying to have rules. Like, I'm not going to be out of the house more than 3 or 4 nights a week, so I could be home to tend to kids and be with them and spend time with them. Trying to develop routines, especially when they were little. Like Friday night, never left the house on a Friday night. Like, you couldn't pull me out of the house. That was known as Mom Doesn't Cook Night in my house. And we would have a little tradition of getting takeout and watching a movie, which my kids really appreciated. So it's remembering that the most important role you have in your house is being a parent, and it's also the hardest, and trying to make sure you're leaving time setting aside for them as well. So thanks. In order to be a really great city, you need to have a strong state partner. I like to think we're a strong state partner, helping with resources, developing policies that can help make sure the city's functioning well. Local government is the branch of government you rely on the most, educating your kids, keeping your neighborhood safe, investing in driving the economy, the places you make memories, parks, your favorite city square, that's all driven locally. So the job at the state is really to uplift and empower that. And I was concerned that we had a state election coming up and there wasn't anybody who understood cities and how they worked and how they could be helpful, and really wanted to play that role. I had been mayor for 17 years and felt like I could give something back at another level. Fortunately, you have to run in a much larger geography then. You could knock on doors when you're mayor, and I could cover the whole city. In fact, I did many, many times. But you can't do that statewide. It's just 7 million people, 351 cities and towns. So you have to really rely on others to be surrogates for you, to continue to talk about what you'd like to do in this role, how you can be of service to the state. And then we have something called a convention that happens, and you get nominated from your convention, and then your name gets on the ballot, and you run as a team. But it's a process of representative democracy the whole way up. So that's how it happened for me. What's the favorite thing about my job? Coming in to talk to groups like you. It really is about the people, being able to interact with individuals and adults that care about where they live or care about an issue. There are things that we can do in state government to make life better, to improve the economy, to support things that really add to the quality of life. And I really appreciate being in a role to try and help lead some of that and position not only our state, but our cities and our people to do great things here. I think when you care about something, it's a little bit easier because you're passionate about it. But for me, it really took time and effort. Like, what are the main points I want to get across? How do I talk, with brevity, but, with impact? How do I make sure people relate to me when I'm talking with them? Those are things that I don't do naturally, but if it's important and you think you can add value, I enjoy it. So, but it took time, for sure. What was my biggest mistake as lieutenant governor? Wow, I think I make a mistake every day, right? Honestly, how you learn sometimes is by trying things that don't work, right? And we in local government, we tried a lot of things. I'll speak to that because I've been in that job longer. I was only in it for 2 years. We tried, the scooters, electric scooters in Salem. We were like, hey, let's have an electric scooter share program. Like you could rent it for an hour or for 10 minutes, and that'll be great. People can use it to get around, and then maybe people won't be in a car. And there were parts of it that were really good, but there were parts of it that were terrible. Scooters were all over the place. People were driving crazy on them. Nobody had helmets. The community was like, up in arms. So we tried something, it didn't work. We learned a lot from it. And then you file that away to figure out other ways to, build safer roadways for scooters and bikes to be able to drive down. But I think every day there's something that I might think about or say or do, and it may not be 100% right. I think that's okay. We learn a lot when we make mistakes. Honestly, there's something called failing up. I'm not advising you to fail, okay? Put in work and do what you need to do. But you can learn from trying things and not having success, but learning from it so you get better the next time you try something. If you think about what your goals are, anytime we tried a new program, like what is our goal? What is the value here? This is not my money. I'm spending your money, taxpayer dollars. I have to treat it like it's precious, but I also want to make sure we're not just sticking in the status quo and that we're not afraid to try something so that we can try and get better. But yeah, I make mistakes all the time. Just ask my kids, they're happy to tell me, all of them. We're a state, we have state rights, continue to support the things that we value here. That's inclusiveness, diversity, equity, education, making sure Massachusetts is for all of us. We're going to continue to hold our values dear while trying to work with the state, and we do have a duty and obligation when they are doing things that are wrong, either because they violate the law, wrong because they violate the Constitution, to call those out. That's what Massachusetts history was all about. The folks who were throwing tea in the harbor and were banding together to fight this militia, to form this militia, they took on the greatest military power known to mankind at its time. Great Britain and England, 13 colonies. They weren't all from Massachusetts, but we were kind of the leaders here. We said we can be disruptive. We can find a better way to govern. And there was no playbook for it, right? These were people who were making this up. There was no democracy that existed or self-governance or the idea that people would vote and find their own leaders. That started here. So we think those revolutionary ideas still exist, and we're going to stand up and fight for them and preserve them and call out what's wrong when we need to here in Massachusetts. Public education for us is delivered locally. So one of the things we do as a state is support it financially, making sure there's dollars available. We're trying to always find ways to bring more dollars into public school systems. I think, too, we also want to make sure we're doing things we can to invite innovation, to find ways to get better. One of the things I love about Massachusetts, as somebody who's lived in lots of different places, is like there's a restlessness here of we can tackle hard things. And if you ask me as mayor what I'm most proud of, it's not a building or a park, it's a culture that exists in City Hall that says, how do we continuously get better? We don't pick up trash the way we did 10 years ago, we don't solve crimes the way we did 10 years ago. What's the next best way for us to service our constituents? In education, I think what the state can do is sometimes get out of the way, let local leaders, let local principals and superintendents do what they do best. They know their community, they know their kids. We have a number of educators here who know how to do things. And the second part is drive innovation. What comes next? None of you would have had a Chromebook or an iPad or whatever technology you're using 10 years ago. We just didn't have enough of them. We didn't have them integrated into what we do in terms of how we teach, how you provide information to us. So what's next? What's coming? AI, artificial intelligence. How do we integrate that knowing that you're going to enter into a world, particularly in Massachusetts, that's a knowledge-based economy. You got to have a credential, you got to have a skill. A strong back just doesn't guarantee a middle-class income. So how are we leading innovation that keeps you engaged, that recognizes that school is hard and people learn differently? And how do we incorporate that into the work that your educators are doing to try and make sure you're feeling like this place matters to you, that you're getting something out of it? For us, it's helping drive a process that we can do some of the hard work, the blocking and tackling, so you can deliver it at the local level. That's probably not the answer you wanted, but that's the truth. And most importantly, I want you to recognize the folks who come to this building every single day, the folks who keep it clean, who prepare the lunches, who help you when you've got a boo-boo, who help you when you're having a struggle at home or here. Like, this is what makes schools great, and overall, it's our job to support it. So you guys, thank you for having me. I hope you have a great day. Really appreciate your engagement. And remember, you have the power.